Leading in a Changing World is the book that Keith and I wrote together on trying to get a sense of what leadership might look like in a world that's constantly changing. I mean, that for me was the big question coming into the project was, you know, the old style of leadership is very much about knowing where to go, follow me, I'm the leader, I've been here before. And yet we've discovered over the last years of working at Tomorrow Today Global that just isn't the reality for most leaders. And so it was a real thrill to write the book with you and looking at this new approach to adaptive and invitational leadership.
You know, as you know, Graham, we always talk about leadership as always context specific. And so the context of the book is the changing world, and you're an expert in that. And so a lot of the bits of the book that have to do with the VUCA world, the context, the changing world, Graham wrote from his global experience in that area. And then, of course, the book goes on to say, well, what is the leadership response? How then do leaders lead in such a changing context? What I liked about the book was that only by default more than design, when I counted back, do you know that we almost asked more questions than there are pages in the book? Not quite, but it's almost. I went back and counted through every single page questions asked. And that doesn't sound much like a very good leadership book because it poses more questions, but I think it's a smart approach because we've always said that good leaders are leaders that ask good questions.
And it's a practical book. That was the design of it. We didn't need another book on leadership theory. In fact, we reference a lot of books on leadership theory, but what we wanted, and I think we've been able to achieve, is a book that is really a practical handbook for a leader who wants to develop new skills and new mindsets. It's probably going to have a volume 2 because we've already had feedback from people asking us questions about various aspects of leadership that are not in the book, but it was a very focused book, I think, to help leaders ask the right questions around the mindsets and skills required for a changing context.
One short thing, Graham, I heard you say to somebody, and I'd never thought about this, again, it wasn't really part of our design. Your comment was that you can pick up this book and read it from any starting point. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think if you take the first chapter or two, you get a context of the changing world, and then from there each chapter is themed on a particular mindset or a particular skill. And you can maybe dive into the areas where you feel you're already quite strong and see what we've got to say on those, like asking questions, in fact, is one of the topics. Or dive into an area that you maybe had never considered or feel a little bit weak on. And get some of the practical tips and tricks and take it from there. It's probably not a book that's going to be most valuable just read cover to cover. Probably needs to sit on your desk for a few weeks or months and you dip in and out of it. And so you could really dip in and out wherever you wanted to.